Hey, how's it going, everyone? Thank you so much for clicking on the video. I hope y'all are having a fantastic day. So here we are, man. December 2017, the final month in what has been one of the greatest years of recent gaming. Just looking back on all of the insane releases we've had, whether they be from the West or the East, AAA or indie, 2017 is definitely going to go down as a year where we can look back on and say, dang, all of these amazing titles released, and I haven't finished a single one of them. Who's gonna have that problem going into the future? Who? Only me? Yes, only me. Alrighty. But today, the game that we're gonna be talking about is the last big hoorah for 2017, that I think, unless we get a stealth release of something, and the final big exclusive for Nintendo Switch until, well, whenever Nintendo does another Direct, because 2018 is looking sketchy. We have Xenoblade Chronicles 2, or Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I've heard different pronunciations from various people. I've always called it Xenoblade, and I'm going to keep calling it Xenoblade. So here we are with Xenoblade Chronicles 2, a direct sequel to the original Xenoblade Chronicles that isn't necessarily a direct sequel. It's its own game, but it has the 2 on the title, even though it is not the second game in the series. It is actually the third. You see how confusing that is? Whew. Okay, so messy bed of clothes that need to get folded aside, there's a lot I gotta say about this game. So much. Being a big fan of the first Xenoblade Chronicles, like I'm sure most people were, I was eagerly anticipating the next game in the series. And when I found out that game was Xenoblade Chronicles X, I was excited. And then I started seeing more of that game, and I was disgusted. And then the game came out, and I was just like, no, keep that away from me. Seriously. And then we have this game, and I was pretty much of the mindset that, oh god, if it's just going to be another X, I don't know, I can't do this, man. And just looking at the anime art style and all the things leading into it, I was kind of like, ugh, this ain't looking good. But I decided to take the plunge, considering this was another big release for the Switch, and because this was actually made as a response to the backlash of the original Xenoblade Chronicles X. So that was very interesting. They were working on both of these at the same time. And the fact that they were listening to all the feedback from X while they were making this definitely got me more intrigued. So what do I think about the game being 10 hours in? Very, very, very mixed. It's so funny because whenever I do these first impressions, especially of JRPGs, I usually like to wait until I get 10 hours. That's something that I always recommend people do when they play a JRPG, just so they can get their full understanding of where this game is going. But as it stands with this game, I'm 10 hours in and I really feel like I haven't done much of anything. Nothing important anyway. Which is a real shame because I'm looking at games like The Witcher and Skyrim and I'm comparing my playtime in those games and what I did. And I had much more fun as opposed to Xenoblade Chronicles 2 where it's just so limiting. The stuff that I'm doing doesn't really feel like I'm having a big difference because it's still introducing you to the actual world. Like, there's so many tutorials in this game about the battle system. It's just a tutorial for freaking everything in this title. The story itself is not really particularly engaging, so you're not wondering what's going to happen next. Like, the way it opens up, it's so nonchalantly, and it's just like, oh, okay, I'll just follow this guy and see what he's doing. Oh, this opens up this part of the story here. That's cool for you? It's unlike the first Xenoblade Chronicles where it just starts off with a freaking bang and it's like, oh my god, man, that is epic. It definitely sets the tone, and then the next scene is Shulk sleeping in the field and you're like, whoa. So obviously this guy is important because that scene there, this game's gonna be crazy. But for here, it's just like, alright, we just gotta go along for the road. It's like taking the long family road trips. Like, you know you're eventually gonna get to something cool, but all along the way it's just boring. It's monotonous, and that wouldn't be a problem if the battle system was great and interesting and you can actually, it gives you more motivation to go and fight things. But as it stands, the battle system, I'm just now getting to the point where you have a little bit more control and you can do a lot more crazy combos with your arts and such. But for people who are playing for the first time, they're going to get so freaking bored of this because it is so repetitive with the combat. It's so dull and bare bones, and it's just auto attack, and then occasionally you can have an art string into that, and it's just like, oh wow, this is really fun. Again, things are going to change as I progress further in the game. I need to make that clear. But as it stands from a game design standpoint, it's just really ugh for newcomers, especially for people who have never played this, who just picked up the Switch and they've heard hype things about it. They're gonna have to struggle a bit. And I know it's all for the greater good of making sure you get fully acclimated to the entire Xenoblade experience. But from a game design standpoint, you could have done a lot more to accommodate these people playing the game. It's just, again, it's a situation where I can't just recommend someone pick it up and have fun with it. Even Persona 5, which I honestly think has one of the better introductions to the first hours of gameplay, that's still something that needs to be improved on. Japanese developers need to go above and beyond with making it more, I don't even want to say easier for people, but getting you more and more into the experience as opposed to all this useless exposition. You know what I mean? It'd be one thing if it was like an Elder Scrolls game where there's just so much stuff for you to do that you don't even have to play the main story in the beginning. But it's not. Like, I wish there was like a hybrid in between of things. And no, just because I'm ragging on this game doesn't mean that any other games that are JRPGs get a pass. And just because it is a trope doesn't mean that it isn't a problem that needs to be addressed. Like, I hate this whole thing where people are like, it exists in JRPGs, you gotta get used to it. No, I don't have to get used to it. They should adapt. Like, seriously, come on now. It's the future. It's 2017. Even though we had these same arguments in 2011. So regardless of that, as it stands, the combat system I'm actually okay with. I think it's fine for what it is from where I am. And I'm sure it's going to be a lot more fun later on. There were some of the complaints from people when it came to the pre-release stuff, like the overall design of the HUD and everything. I actually didn't have too much of a problem with the HUD. I think it looks okay. There's definitely a lot of stuff on screen, but it does serve a purpose. So it's not necessarily like, oh, we're going to put this here for fluff. It definitely does look a bit jarring at first. It looks like, oh, kind of like a phone game would do their HUDs, because you have everything in every single corner of the screen. I know Xenoblade Chronicles 2 visually has been compared to an MMO like Final Fantasy 14 in terms of the way you look when you battle, because it is all auto attack, and that is true, but it doesn't have sort of the freedom that 14 does when it comes to at least your character roaming around and doing the combat stuff. Rex is pretty dang slow, to say the least. Oh, speaking of Rex, let's talk about one of the most glaring problems of the game, the art style. Now, okay, here's the weird thing. I like the art style, and I don't like the art style. When I'm looking at these characters, like just looking at them from screenshots, I think they're ugly as sin. I mean, they don't look as bad as the X characters, but I just think that no real creativity went into their character designs. They just look so dull. Like, we went from Shulk to Rex. Like, that's just one of the biggest downgrades of all time. Like, generic anime shonen protagonist looking motherfucker. Looking like a reject from Dark Cloud 3. He's the reason we didn't get Dark Cloud 3, man. But, yeah, I think they just look especially Pyra. But when you actually see it in motion, it's like, alright, it looks pretty damn good, because a lot of attention to detail went towards that. So in that respect, I think it's cool. The world itself is honestly very beautiful, like, especially when you're in like the open world and you see just the draw distances. It just looks very good. Unfortunately, that comes with some performance issues. Whenever you're entering a densely populated town, the game does tend to chug from time to time, and then it does pick itself back up. Whenever you're fast traveling, the textures take a while to load in. Basically, this is a PS3 RPG, because all the problems that I'm experiencing with this happen in PS3 RPGs like the Tales series and whatnot. Which, I mean, it makes sense because the Switch is essentially a little bit more powerful than a PS3, so of course you're going to have the problems that existed with a PS3. But other than that, I actually think that the world itself looks great. The character designs, they're not the greatest in the world, but for the game itself, I think it's alright. I just think that the Xenoblade series deserves something better, like with the first game. Let's move into other aspects of the presentation. The voice acting. That's a thing. Just avoid it. Download the Japanese audio pack. I don't even know what they're saying in Japanese, but it's a heck of a lot more tolerable than this. This Nintendo of Europe needs to be annihilated and excommunicated. Whatever you need to do, they need to apologize for this god-awful English dub. It's just, it shouldn't be this bad. It's not even bad in it's funny way. It's just really terrible. And I'm not over exaggerating. This is a guy who prefers to watch anime in English. And you're saying this shit is really bad. Ugh. It's like, what were they thinking with this? They definitely should have contracted, you know, freaking Funimation or Bang Zoom or whatever anime company out there to do the dub, because they would have done more justice than whatever the heck these rejects they got for this game. Because it honestly takes you out of the experience, especially when you're in battle. It is one of the most obnoxious things in the world, listening to these characters and the way they pronounce their attacks and how it's just ham-fisted. And couple that with the fact that they regurgitate all the dialogue time in and time out. It's just like, whoa, this is an overload. Like, this is like JRPG to the max overload. Thankfully, you can turn off the voices in the game, which is a plus. And if you need to, you can mute the dialogue and just read the subtitles on the game. Basically, play this game with no audio but the music, and you will have a great time, because the music in this game, oh my god, this is some of the best music that I've seen this generation. It is definitely one for the history books. From the first location that you encounter in this game, the music is just so good, and every single time I enter a new area, I cannot wait to hear what masterful piece of just amazing orchestral scoring with the trumpets and the everything have they come up with, because it's so good. It's great. The battle theme is great. I love it. It's a shame we got these annoying ass characters, but it's awesome nonetheless. Other than that, yeah, those are pretty much my first impressions on Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I definitely think when I add another 30 hours, the game is going to be better, but as it stands, it definitely does not hook me as much as the first Xenoblade, as much as Persona 5 did, but I do think there is potential in this game, and I think it's going to be pretty cool. From a presentation standpoint, if you can get past the terrible character designs and the pretty bland generic story right now, then I think you'll be okay for now. Anyways, what do you guys think about Xenoblade Chronicles 2? Let me know down in the comments section. For me, for now, my name is NGS signing out, and like always, I will catch you guys later. Peace.